everybody, Jacob here. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the Fashion Bunker in a hotel room somewhere in Paris. So today we're going to review, let's block it off from the sun, Paris review. Oh my god, look at me, reflected 3 times. Scary and spooky. Paris Riviera by Chanel. So as I mentioned in another video of mine, I'm going to review it in Paris, while in Paris. Isn't that, it's kind of romantic. Okay, so let's cut the chase. As of now, this is my favorite Lezoux of the 4. Let's put it on. You can just keep spraying it as much as you want. You can never have enough of it. Literally. Particularly go there because I'm going to sniff it here to go in depth with the review. Okay, so I'm getting used to even the head notes. Even the head notes are really good as of now. They're not bothering me like they did in the beginning. But citruses, flowers in general, and orange peel are in the head notes. The middle notes are jasmine and neroli. Base notes, sandalwood and benzoin. Top notes are citrus heavy, orange peel less. For me, it's more citrusy. Not a fan of the citrusy touch, but then again, this was meant to be an eau de cologne like all of the Lezoux, so I get it. You know what I mean? It's fine that the citruses are there. Especially, it's fine in this case because they're gone within half a minute, and I'm left with this benzoin sandalwood mix. Neroli and jasmine are there as well. It's just very well blended, quite frankly. It's the more you use it, the more your nose gets used to it as well. So longevity does diminish because it's so good that you kind of don't perceive it as a threat. You know, your organism just says, oh, okay, this is good for me. So it just stops perceiving it as a threat. So that means that at a certain point, you just tend to notice it less on you, but others will still smell it on you. But it's so good that it kept in the beginning, and I mentioned this in my unboxing and first impressions video, it kept reminding me of some fragrances that I've smelled in the 80s or late 80s or early 90s or I don't know. And then it hits you when you realize which fragrances they were. So if it will help you understand which language olfactorily or smelling wise we're talking about here, let me give you a hint. I realized that the first fragrance this one reminds me of is Givenchy's Isatis. Isatis 80s formulation. There's a soft blanket of rosy, powdery, neroli-esque warmth in Isatis, or something very comforting about it. It's like a blanket of a flowery powder. It's delicious, delicious. And now there's too much sun. Okay. Sorry guys, this is like, I'm just filming from the iPad, which means like camera ain't professional, so bear with me. It doesn't adjust automatically to the light. I have to do it manually. So that blanket is rare to sniff out in a perfume. I'm also obsessed with cyclamines, you know, and it's really hard to find. And I mentioned, I think in another video of mine, that there's this, also in a comment, one of the comments to one of you guys underneath one of my videos, I said, you know, there's this perfumer in New Zealand that does a cyclamine extract fragrance, and I wanted to order it, but then he told me that he, outside of New Zealand, because of their import-export regulations, he can't export the alcohol mixed perfume. This is also alcohol. Every perfume has alcohol, but he has to make an almond oil or some, not almond oil, I don't know, almond oil or some oil mix instead of the alcohol in order to be able to export the fragrances. I didn't want to do that, so I'm still looking forward to somebody from New Zealand who actually has access to those perfumes to buy them for me. But then again, how you know, if New Zealand doesn't permit export of alcoholic fragrances, then how are you going to send it to? Well, anyway, I'll figure something out. That's besides the point. The point is this. Cyclamines. I think it's the neroli that reminds me of cyclamines in a way, but the way that they blended the citruses with the jasmine, the neroli here, and the benzoin in particular, kind of gives me an illusion of cyclamines, even though they're not in this. Well, maybe they are. They're just not mentioned. I don't think they're in it. So, and this is already something I love. I love when there are hints of cyclamine, of wild ones, because the domestic ones, they don't have any scent, really, not really. But the wild ones, they're smaller, they're tiny. They cover they grow in the woods and the forests, usually like September, October. Divine smell, rose, pinky color. So there's that. And that blanket that I mentioned before that Isatis used to deliver is there as well. Then another fragrance it reminds me of is from Rocha. Do you pronounce it Rochas? I think it's Rocha. Sorry if I butcher the name brand, but it is what it is, French. Lumière. The fragrance is Lumière. That's also a kind of early 80s, mid 80s fragrance. Also has hints of Lumière. And then, just recently, I noticed the third fragrance it reminds me of. It would be Valentino Uomo. I think the first male fragrance, Valentino Uomo, first, not the first fragrance Valentino made, but Valentino Uomo was a huge success. And we're talking about the first formulation, first release in the 2000s, early 2000s. No, was it late 90s? Go figure. I don't know. But so that smell brings weird memories, but at the same time, interesting memories, because it was a period of growing. It was like, it's a smell that reminds me of complications I had in my life, and it also reminds me of how I surpassed those complications and those obstacles. So it's actually a good memory. So these are the three. This is the triangle that kind of defines Paris Riviera. If you were to say, what does it smell like? What is it similar to? I usually don't like to compare perfumes to other perfumes. And in fact, in most of my videos, you're never going to hear me say, this smells like that smells like this. And I know a lot of you in the comments comment about it and ask, okay, so what does it smell like? What does it smell like, Jacob? And I know it's because we tend to, bear with me, this is kind of hard to follow. It's because we tend to visualize, or let's say we're taught to automatically try to visualize anything somebody talks about. So even if it's an abstract concept, we try to visualize it to help us understand it better. But with perfumes, a smell should stay abstract in a way that no two perfumes are alike. In fact, if we repurchase Riviera a year from now, it will smell different. It will. Slightly, but it will also be different. So to say that this smells like Isatis, Lumière, and Valentino Uomo is kind of already reductive. Hi, Madge. That's already reductive. But by the way, Madge, I love you. But the new songs and the whole concept, back to Riviera. But girl, call me if you need any help on getting stuff done right. Anyway, okay. Moving on. Back to the perfume at hand. Concept. Now, it's always good to let yourself fall into a perfume. It's also hard for me to tell you guys when you write me, oh, I'm into Coco Mademoiselle and I'm into, I don't know, Dolce & Gabbana for women, the first one. Would I like Paris Riviera? I don't know if you would. To me, there's no, I don't think, you know what I mean? Like the connection and the synopsis in my brain, they don't work that way. I don't connect fragrances that way. There's no way I can tell you if you would like it or not, according to if you like other perfumes. The only way you will really know if you like it is by spraying it on, smelling it, and seeing how it works on you and how you're enjoying it and how, how it develops on your skin. That's the only way, guys. And I know, unfortunately, some of these Les Eaux and the Les Exclusives are not available in every city, and it's hard to get them, and they cost a lot of money. And then you're like, well, the only way I can get them is if I blind purchase them, and blind buying stuff is, it's risky because it's a lot of money. What if you don't like something? So I get it. It's a risk. But at the same time, of course, you could always try to find a sample size decant of something, but that also costs money. But there's no other way. You know what I mean? Unfortunately. And that's why when I make a review, I try to give an abstract vision of it so that each and every one of us can interpret it in their own way. So I give an interpretation of a feeling that everybody can associate to in their own personal way, so that when you ultimately smell the fragrance on your own skin, you might remember the words I was saying, but you will remember them in the way that they inspired you, not in the way that they inspired some other person that saw the same video. And this is, to me, a good perfume review in general. I'm not saying because I did it or not. I'm just saying a good perfume review to me is like a good perfume. What does this mean? A good perfume tells a different poem to every person wearing it. A good perfume review is abstract in a way that every person takes from it what they want, what they need, what they feel. And that's different from person to person. And this is, to me, this is what brings a perfume review close to a perfume, because it's abstract that way. So now we're going to get to the abstraction. The actual essence of Paris Riviera. And I was blabbering for 12 minutes so that I could get a little bit closer to the dry down. Fascinating. You don't see it because the light sucks, but the consistency of it is quite oily. It's kind of oily on my skin. It's shiny, There's like a little oily layer on top. So it's not just an alcoholic concoction. There's some essential oils in here. Something is in there. Whether it be synthetic or not, we don't know. But in the unboxing, I mentioned this beach, and I mean, you could go check out the unboxing again to be reminded, and fluffy clouds, and then I mentioned the blanket. It's almost lotiony, creamy, balmy, but soft, so soft, and yet Olivier managed to maintain certain longevity despite the softness. And usually we know if something is too soft, it kind of withers away very soon. Be it the benzoins or be it the sandalwood, these kind of resins, maybe they keep it closer to the skin for longer, but all those citruses and that neroli and jasmine, I think that's what kills it in a good way. They maintain an elegant softness, and it's luscious and luxurious. It's subdued. It's slightly detached. We're used to that with Chanel. Chanel perfumes are never tacky. They always kind of observe from a distance. And this one is so close to Chanel herself, to me. Now, of course, I'm just interpreting it because I unfortunately wasn't lucky enough to meet the woman while she was alive. But this one is almost like a spa fragrance, but it could be also worn at night. It's like something you use for yourself, to enjoy, to relax. It's an intimate moment of pure pleasure, you with you. But at the same time, it's like a little treasure that you share with somebody you like very much, and you let them smell it out on you if they come close enough to you, if you let them come close enough to you. But it's also a booster if you're in a business meeting and you just want to have that sensation of being fresh and ready for the moment without overpowering anybody else in the room. Also a tricky balance to do. It's easy to make a fragrance that is just meh, inoffensive. It's also easy to make a fragrance that's loud and shrieks in your face, like Alien, for example, by Thierry Mugler, or Angel, Poison, or Opium, Well, Opium wasn't easy to make. It's very complex. But you know, you could make something that screams, you could make something that's meh, but it's hard to make an in-between. It's really hard to make an in-between. And Paris Riviera to me is really spot on in the middle, because it gives you the subdued, but it also delivers power. And that's something very beautiful. So on that beach where the sand is so thin, it never hurts you. It's almost unpalpable. It's like walking on clouds, that warm sand. Imagine from time to time a cloud passes by and it rains and the sand gets wet and it kind of becomes more compact. Never mushy though. Just, you know how sand is when it gets wet, especially very thin. We are on an island that has been formed from lava, and the sand is black. The volcanic sand beaches, they're black, they're dark. And they can be very, very soft and almost like nanotechnology, guys, like almost imperceptible to the touch, every little grain of sand. And then it rains and then it just compacts. And so when you step on it, it's still soft. You kind of sink slightly into the sand, and your footprint expands, and the water kind of, when you lift the foot, the water kind of elevates from the sand just slightly, and then it disappears again into the sand. And there's that freshness on the bottom of your foot, you know, on your toes, on your foot. You feel the cooling touch of the wet sand, and the sand is wet from the rain, not from the salty ocean, but from the sweet watered rain. And then you walk on that wet sand and the cloud passes by. It's not raining anymore, and very soon that glistening sun starts heating up the sand so that the sand starts drying, and as it dries, the water evaporates from it, so that air between the sand and your face, that air becomes more condensely humid for a couple of minutes before it dissipates. That in between period of that humidity between the ground and your head, it's like being in a warm, soft cocoon, and you're protected, and you feel like you could just run naked on that beach because Earth, you know, Mother Earth is covering you with its most precious balm, which is that huey humidity mixed with heat. And you know it's going to disappear. It's not going to stay humid for long. This is not, you know, this is not Gorillas in the Mist. We ain't Sigourney Weaver living in Tropicana for too long. This is, you know that it's going to dry out soon, so you're not going to have to suffer the humidity. It's just a short period of time, just enough to refresh your skin, just enough to rehumidify your skin, to feed it, to make it healthy and glowy again. And then all of a sudden, that humidity is gone, and the sun is out again completely, and that sand becomes warmer and warmer. You're still walking. You never stopped walking. You're walking. And those, you know, those wet footprints become drier and drier. And that humidity is kind of crossing up. It's going up, and it's gone. And then we're back to the heat. And the sand is again super, super thin, and you're walking on it, and it feels like dust. And then all of a sudden it feels like clouds as it gets hotter. And then just before it gets unbearable, you make a turn towards the ocean and you go into the water and you cool down. And then you have the glistening sun on your wet hair, on your wet skin, and it just feels that good. It doesn't at all come across as a sun lotion. It doesn't have that vibe to me. It's too floral for that. The flowers are so powerful in here that they, you know, overpower that. Some perfumes that smell like suntan lotion, they have a lotiony, creamy touch to them. This one doesn't have that cream. Maybe number 22 has a little bit more of that creamy concept going on. Paris Venice definitely does. This one doesn't. This one is too floral for that. It doesn't have that suntan cream, you know. So you're constantly with this one, it really walks that thin line, perfectly well balanced and blended. It walks that thin line of being too dry and being too wet, you know. But it's not a cream. It's the wet sand, it's the dry sand. It's you jumping into the ocean, it's the sun drying the water off of your skin and your hair and leaving that salt in there. But then the rain falling on the sand is sweet water, not salty water. So there's a combination of those, and it's a constant balance, and it's a shift from one to the other. That's how beautiful this one is. And this entire game that this perfume is playing, during this entire game, it manages to do something incredible. And that is, it remains simple. It stays simple. I'm not saying that it's banal or vulgar. It's simple in a beautiful way. It's humble and modest, not because it thinks it doesn't need to try. No, it's trying. It's trying, but it's simple. It kind of, you feel that it understands, it knows where the balances lie, where the tops, the peaks and the lows and the deeps are. And it just shifts between them delicately, but constantly, maintaining ultimately a linear simplicity. It fluctuates, but in the same way. It's not like it goes dung, 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 you know, it flows like this, you know, like the ebb and the flood, like the waves. There's no monsoon here. There's no crazy tsunami. There's nothing dangerous. If the rain comes, it's not a violent rain. There are no thunderstorms. It's just cloud passing by, delivering the rain, going away, the sun again, another cloud and the sun. You know, it's one of those pleasant days where anything can happen. You know, everything can happen. At a split second, you could shift from sun to rain and back again. And you keep walking on that beach, and then you go into that ocean, and then when you go out of the ocean and the sun dries you off, you feel much closer to nature than you were before. And I know that perfumes are, you know, for the most part, artificial concoctions, you know, chemicals in here, and that, alas, that's what we got to deal with, you know, artificial ingredients. But Olivier nailed it with this one, and he made me feel a connection to nature, which is also very fascinating, because the more time passes and the more I analyze Chanel in general as a brand and Chanel as a woman in her past, and reading all the books on her, and also how with Ernest Beau and then Henri Robert, because they both worked with her while she was alive, how the perfumes were conceived, and that specific type of, which I mention often in my videos, detachment and cold heart of certain Chanel perfumes. In fact, also the advertisements are always cold-hearted, emotionless. It's fascinating to me, the more time passes and the more I realize that actually that emotionless, cold-hearted aspect of Chanel is really what nature is all about. Nature doesn't think about you and me. It doesn't have emotion. It's cold-hearted. You know what I mean? When a storm hits, it hits. When a crop dies, it dies because of a frost. There's no mercy. Mother Nature is merciless. It's cold-hearted. It doesn't even really have a heart. I think the living beings on this planet are the heart of nature. So now you understand also a little bit climate change and how terribly we're hurting Mother Nature, because we are its heart. And if we start rotting, if we start beating in the wrong way by polluting nature, by consuming and throwing plastics into the oceans, all the carbon burning, you know, consumption, creating trash and garbage that is not biodegradable, we are the heart of that nature, of that mother, and we are a sick heart. If the heart stops beating, nature dies. Except this time nature can actually have a heart transplant. Once we're gone, it can have another heart to start to beat for it. we're not the only ones that are the heart of nature. Also animals are, all living creatures are. So it's fascinating to me to actually have arrived to the end conclusion that Chanel perfumes and the advertisement strategy of Chanel in general, that kind of detachment, that coldness about it, isn't just about the arrogance of luxury. No, it's about a definition of what nature is. That's why Chanel's La Pausa, you know, her house, there's a wonderful book on that. You can check it on Amazon. I posted it also on my Instagram profile, Super Decable, spelled together. La Pausa, her villa, which the Chanel company kind of repurchased again. She sold it in the 50s, and the Chanel company allegedly, now I guess, no, it's not. I don't think it's alleged. I don't know. I have to say allegedly, I guess, but repurchased and want to kind of reconstruct it the way she made it. Very austere, empty, cold-hearted, and yet so attractive. That's one of the reasons I love Chanel so much, because she was nature, and her aseptic clinical detachment in the way she constructed clothes, in the way she approached advertisement, in the way she chose which perfumes to sell, that was so organic and ultimately so natural. Thank you guys so much for watching. Paris Riviera, a natural concept from Chanel by Olivier Polch. If you like this video, please do thumb it up. Let me know what you thought about it and what you think about Paris Riviera in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel here on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also on Patreon. So if you wish to see exclusive previews or videos launched a couple of days prior to them being launched on YouTube, they're already on Patreon. And most of the videos on Patreon are exclusive to Patreon. That means they never hit YouTube. So check that out as well. And of course, goes without saying, check out the Never Give Up on Love merchandise in the bar underneath this video. T-shirts, sweatshirts, leggings, pillows, mugs, posters, what have you. We got it for you. So I love you guys. See you soon. Never give up on love. Love you. Bye.